Great to
So
be
we
here.
have mostly Californian party today.
Yes.
As far as I know, Daryl is from LA.
Yeah, Daryl's from Ojai.
Yep. Yes, this is true.
Welcome. Good
All right.
morning.
If we were our own country, we would be like the fourth largest.
Yeah,
economy or
yeah.
something.
We will be the weirdest country in the world, I think.
We would, yeah. In a good way.
I hope so.
Good, and sometimes too good, if you ask me.
Yeah, too good to be true.
Yeah, I'm going to try to sign in with my computer. Let's see.
So let's start.
Okay, yeah, let's ramp up. So can I share my screen? Oh, yeah.
Yes, you can.
Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so it's basically an investment deck, but I'm not pitching here because it's just convenient for me to rely on it. So what we're talking about today is how to make, what are the main sources of the housing crisis in Western developed countries from my perspective. I might be not super right on it, and I'm welcoming if you will challenge me or my vision, that'll be perfect. So America is built on immigrants for sure. So we have the most amount of immigrants in the world per country. I think it's so in general it's 3 million, no, 330 millions of immigrants, because Native Americans are tiny and we are all new here mostly. And foreign born, yeah, we have 51 million of foreign born residents, like the first time immigrants. It's bigger than the majority of countries in the world, and it's only our first generation immigrant population. And at the same time, we have reindustrialization these days. So the ruling party says like, okay, we gotta forget China, forget all of our, like most of our partners in Asia, and we gotta move back manufacturing to the country, and especially high-end, high-tech manufacturing like semiconductors, robots, biotech, etc. And so we already starve for talent. And it's kind of fun that in local Bay Area chats, especially in the ladies' chats, which are most emotional, much more emotional than the men's chat, and they say, oh my God, my husband has been fired from Facebook or Google, and he's a product manager, and he can't find a new job for half a year. But previously, there was a line of employers wanting to employ him, and now it's absolutely impossible to find a job if you're in tech. But at the same time, just right the next thread is like, my husband has a medical company. He can't find a nurse for half a year. Please give me any nurse you can see. Or my husband has an HVAC company and he cannot find an electrical engineer or whatever for half a year. Please, anyone, give me electrical engineer for any price. And so America is already starving for a lot of talent in different industries beyond just pure software, which was in a bubble for years. And it will get worse because we import a lot of manufacturing back from Asia. For example, Taiwan Semiconductor, Samsung, Intel, they're building semiconductor production facilities in America. And for example, Taiwanese company will deport like 100,000 workers with their families. to America, just to like feel the feel the places, because there's no people to pick from in the US. Yeah, it's really hard. So different, like Deloitte, they said that it will be a gap of almost 5 million manufacturing jobs very soon, and it's getting bigger. And there's another very interesting trend that the net international migration in the US is falling down. And one of the reasons that I can say, I'm a fresh immigrant here, so I have lived here and there like for 6 years in America, but I have settled finally last year. Like a lot of folks outside of the US always think that America is something which is pictured in Marvel movies or in Hollywood movies. So it's something extremely gorgeous and I don't know, the perfect place in the world. But when they arrive at the spot, it's a disaster for them. So if a person lived in London or in Tokyo, Singapore, Moscow, Dubai, and whatever, and then he lands in Phoenix, Arizona, or in whatever American city, they're like, what the hell is going on here? So like no food, no culture, et cetera, et cetera. It's very hard to understand. And there's a ton of forums and quoras and the different questions over the internet, like why American cities suck, and they do. And if you check out the normal cities like Europeans or Asians are used to, there are small streets, community feeling, a lot of bicycles, a lot of green, tiny roads, etc. Maybe some streets are curved. And here's Phoenix, Arizona. It's the city with the largest net migration in America for the last couple of years, because there's a Taiwan semiconductor factory just like in half an hour ride from downtown. And there are more and more factories building out there, and there's nothing to do in Phoenix. So it looks like a highway with parking lots and offices. Or here's Houston, Texas, which is a new tech mecca, because Elon Musk moved from California to Texas, and a lot of folks also moving because it's cheaper than the Bay Area and the taxes are better, et cetera, et cetera. But also, like the pavement, the cars, and nothing to do, absolutely. And here's the Class A luxury multifamily in Houston, Texas. It's a development project of one of my fellows. So there's nothing to do also here. So no infrastructure at all. It's just a flat field with houses, and you cannot do anything here. So if you look at the American city by the from the standpoint, from the immigrant standpoint, there's nothing to eat. It's very hard to find proper food, and it's hard to find something like cultural, some events, some theaters, or whatever. Suburbs are nothing to do out there, and downtowns are mostly look like zombie land on Fridays and weekends because of the how to say, Euclidean planning. Euclidean planning is when you have a block or a huge amount of land which is dedicated only to commercial, and you have another piece of land only dedicated to residential, so there's no mixed use properties, and that creates a patchwork of isolated spaces. which are hard to navigate by walk. You can only navigate by car. I think folks from Los Angeles feel the pain of driving between the districts. Yeah, and for example, in the Bay Area, when I was asking my fellow parents from the school, like, look, guys, what are you doing on the weekends? What do you do with family? And the only answers were like hiking, football, and shopping. So there's nothing to do here in the Bay Area, basically. Because at least in Los Angeles, there's a lot of, like, there's an LA design district, there's a lot of art galleries, etc. And the Bay Area is absolutely focused on like 24/7 hustle at the laptop and grinding your startup, and that's it. And here's a popular meme from Reddit, like about how suburban moms look like here in the US. So it's also ridiculous for Europeans or Asians because they used to walk with their kids to their classes or to school and back. And here's how local moms look like. And it's kind of fun that I was trying to understand the source of it. And as a real estate investor, I receive a lot of investment decks from the real estate developers. And they shocked me because here's a slide about the benefits of the luxury multifamily residential complex. And it says, okay, in 1 mile drive, you have CVS and Wells Fargo. In a couple of miles, you have Kroger. In 4 miles, you have Mexican restaurant and Chick-fil-A and Subway. So it's impossible to, how to say, real estate developers really and truly believe that if a building has Chick-fil-A and 4 miles drive, it's a nice building. So this is how they evaluate the quality. And if you can see, if you check out almost any real estate development deck, it will be almost the same. So even the luxury residential property is being built, keeping in mind that having a McDonald's in like a couple, I don't know, in half an hour ride is the only thing that a person might need during the living. Yeah, so that's why we think that the source of the housing crisis is not because there's a lack of housing. It's because most cities are non-inhabitable in the US. If you check out the prices, the median home price per square foot is 10 times more on Manhattan than on the rest of the US. So it's because Manhattan looks more like a city for a non-American person because it's dense. You can walk everywhere. You can send your kids to school walking. You can go to university, to your job, or whatever. You can walk everywhere, and you have everything within walking distance. And it's an unusual thing because even Americans say New York is not an America; it's a different planet. So once again,
I can attest to that because I'm from New York originally.
Yeah. I have spent a lot of time there, and I really love the city. But a lot of folks say, like all the headlines and news about the housing crisis, they always focused on New York, or at least in downtown San Francisco, downtown LA, etc. So they try to frame it like the only way to solve the housing crisis is to build more towers in New York, or to build more residential in downtown San Francisco or LA. And it's ridiculous because there are thousands of other towns in the country where the land is cheaper 100 times, and it's easier to build anything because there are no weird building codes. In New York, you even cannot update your bathroom without having a permission from the local administration, and et cetera, et cetera. Same in San Francisco. And there are plenty of room across the country with nice climate, with nice weather, nice people, and the infrastructure, et cetera. But due to the absence of cultural activities and all of these Chick-fil-A's in 4 miles, no one wants to live there, even if it's cheaper like 10 times. So I think the best way to solve the housing crisis is to make non-New York cities livable for the people and more vibrant. And it's much cheaper and more, it's easier. Our hypothesis is to build more stuff like this, like Arts District in LA. But as far as I know, it's getting demolished. So a huge real estate developer is buying land lots through the street near the Arts District LA and knocking down the shops, and is building the like luxury skyscrapers and Louis Vuitton stores, etc. But nevertheless, the use case of Arts District or Miami Wynwood Design District are interesting because creators have migrated to the industrial zones, which are not fancy. They have created nice vibe out there. They have painted murals. They created their own cafes and shops, and people begin to walk out there and having fun. And the district became very, very interesting. And our team have built the same thing in Russia 3 times. We call it a creative cluster, and maybe Marina knows about these, like Arma, Vinzavod, etc. These are guys from our team. So we believe that building these types of creative clusters can make smaller cities more livable and give them more community feeling, provide every generation with interesting stuff to do, like both kids and like spouses and even seniors, and will provide enough motivation for the people to move into these cities, not because there's an interesting job, but because there's an interesting and livable infrastructure out there. So the framework of this type of property is super mixed use. So it could be everything within a single property. It could be a nightclub, art gallery, cafes, education, wellness, whatever, family activities, fashion industry, you name it. So the more diverse it is, the better. And it's also very important to avoid filling it with international brands or huge brands like, I don't know, Wendy's, Starbucks, McDonald's, because people want to have some local feeling because they have tired from Starbucks and McDonald's all over. And that's why we have an expertise in building some contests, public ones, and engaging local creators providing them with a free rent or with the rent with a percentage of the revenue, etc. So it will provide the more, let's say, the more neighborhood feeling for the both tenants and both customers. Because if you go to the shopping mall and it's filled with the huge brands, it doesn't, it's not interesting. It feels plastic. And what we want to provide is the feeling of like the family and the neighborhood. And yeah, there's also one issue with gentrification. It has a bad rap in America because people say like, okay, creators have created an interesting spot, and when it got hot enough, then real estate developers just bulldoze them out and raise a skyscraper, department store, and whatever. And it's not fair for the creatives. So what we propose, and we have the experience in building this type of stuff, so we allocate a piece of equity to our permanent residents who provide enough value to create the vibe. So at the time of exit from the real estate property, at least they will have enough money to ramp up in another place or to just buy a house or whatever they want to do. Yeah, so that's the whole idea regarding the housing crisis. So feel free to challenge me or ask any questions.
Well, thank you. That was a great presentation. I belong to another consortium which is focused on such things. I mean, energy, water, the intersection of housing and all. So this is really an interesting presentation. And the idea of fair gentrification is really fascinating because, you know, I have friends from Oakland, and, you know, just to think out loud real quick. I mean, I thought it was really interesting. And the idea of somewhere in the presentation, you mentioned how to make other cities more livable. I can't remember.
Yeah.
The question I had was one, what would be the criteria to go in to say a mid-sized city? Because a lot of the attributes you spoke about, where I live in the little town of Ojai, I can walk everywhere. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I'm here. I can pretty much walk everywhere. My doctor is 100 yards away from me, you know, so I can walk everywhere. So I get that, and that's really important. But the question I have is, how would you go into a city, like there's 10 cities in my county. And as I was listening to your presentation, I thought, ooh, the Ventura County Leadership Academy, who does a program where we visit with all the civic leaders, every mayor, every police chief, and we go visit with our representatives up in Sacramento to talk about things of goodness in the county here. And I thought this would be a really great thing because Ventura County, which is, you know, ex-burb, I guess you could call it, outside Los Angeles, metropolitan area, has a lot of nice places, but they're small. But they're perfectly situated to experience what you are suggesting in terms of how to make other cities more livable. They're so close because they're small. They're almost like out of the 1950s when you go there. But at the same time, what you'll notice, they do not have the tax base or the revenues, for instance. They do well right now, but with some intention and some, you know, forward-thinking real estate investors, it could be a very picturesque county with the various cities we have, you know, Ventura, Camarillo. Camarillo is kind of a bedroom town, but some of the other cities are a little more quaint situated to benefit from such an approach. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the mayors, etc., I recently bumped into a Las Vegas Clark County ex-administrator, and she also was excited with the deck, and she made an intro to her fellows. And So they said like they're building the whole North Vegas, a bit north from the strip, and it's all mixed use. So they are engaging the denser, how to say, urban planning and mixed use or urban planning. And they want to feel it more livable and European or Asian style type of city. And they welcome developers, especially in mixed use properties. And they have one project which is already in the process. There's a developer from East Bay here. They have built a strip mall, but not from Starbucks and McD, but from local traders, and it's very cozy. So they want to expand this concept to the North Vegas, and want to build a mix of multifamily residential and retail and creative cluster. This is what's an ideal approach for us when you have residences and retail and fun and culture and education in a walking distance. So there are some trendy mayors in our country, and I hope it will be more and more popular over the time. And it's kind of fun that it's Vegas, because the Vegas is absolutely ridiculous city in terms of planning. It just I don't know, a huge mall on the street. But they admit it, and they agree that it's a disaster, and it leads to the high crime rate, because they do have high crime rate beyond the strip, because this type of urban planning detaches people from the community, and that's why they are building the whole new city with a totally different approach.
They're doing something similar to that in Saudi Arabia, somewhere in the Middle East. There's a large building project of brand new cities. Maybe it's the United Arab Emirates. I can't remember.
You mean the line?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the line. Yeah, it's an ambitious project per se, but it's like a huge tunnel when you have everything inside, including the forest and residential.
Is that really practical?
No, at all. I was living in Dubai.
Got a lot of money.
Yeah, their goal is to excite the people. Like Dubai's folks, they have built Burj Khalifa to just excite people and attract attention. So I think Saudis are doing the same. But it's like a Burj Khalifa laying down.
Right. Fascinating.
But at least there will be a lot of architecture and design firms that will practice a lot and do a lot of experiments.
Yes. Can I ask you the question? What do you think is the best balance between privacy, which people usually seek for when they are going to settle in such suburban areas with the absence of any infrastructure, but to live in this closed community with shops far away and restaurants and all the entertainment activities as well, and between these densely populated cities as New York or Moscow. So what's the golden balance between these
yeah
sides?
there's a lot of books and research on it, but long story short, 5-story buildings are the best option. So if the district is built primarily around 5-story, and if the first floor is mostly retail or schooling or whatever, and the rest 4 are residential, it's typically considered by the majority of people on different continents as the best option, because it's dense enough to not being felt as a Vegas strip, and not being felt like as a desert. But so like New York makes people more lonely, and there's a lot of research about the loneliness of New Yorkers. And it's kind of fun because you have 25 million people in the metro area, and the largest density in the world, but they feel themselves lonely because it's too much. Like 40, 50 floor skyscrapers, it's too much. So the optimal thing is like 5 stories, usually.
But now, are the other cities of the world that New York, like you said, is patterned after? Do they have the same levels of despair in terms of loneliness? It'd be interesting.
Yeah, Seoul, South Korea, and Tokyo, they have the same levels of loneliness. Yeah, and it's growing. I have lived in Seoul and in Tokyo, and yeah, people are getting crazy from these super tall buildings all over and ultra high density.
Yeah, Seoul is massive.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not in the same field, but I'm listening very carefully because of the parallels and the situation with, you know, our cities, and because we're working with the Cape Town city, mostly in the human dynamics, not in the planning. But of course, we're working with the planners and we're working with the people who are doing this. So it's really interesting that we have all these slums from the apartheid system, where there was this separation and segregation. And yet so many of our people living in those places will not come into the white areas or the modern areas because of the very same thing. They find community and connection, and would rather stay in the poorer areas and not such great housing on the most. I'm not saying that's for everybody. Some of the conditions are absolutely horrendous. They would want to move anyway. But it seems a universal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And regarding the planning, it's very important to not make ghettos, both rich ghettos or poor ghettos. Because I live in a rich ghetto here. My son is at the Atherton Elementary School. Atherton has the most expensive zip code in America in terms of real estate pricing. And there's absolutely nothing to do out there in Atherton. They don't even have sidewalks. So it's a weird place.
What state is that in?
It's California.
Oh.
It's here in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area? Oh.
Yeah. It's near the West Menlo Park.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's Stephen Curry's living here. It's all of these, like the Google founder, blah, blah, blah. So all of these wealthy ghettos are ridiculous, such as like the poor ghettos. So the best urban planning options are to mix people from different social layers within a walking distance. Because for example, I have also lived in a rich ghetto in Moscow, and it was absolutely ridiculous and boring because the only thing you see on the streets was G-Wagons with security guards, and that's it. So there were no cafes or just ordinary people walking around. It's just a desert with G-Wagons and securities. Extremely bad. So when you mix rich houses and poor houses, you can achieve the balance of, like, you will still have the cafes and retail on the first floor, and it will be livable. So it will be interesting for both, like rich and not. And at the same time, if the general neighborhood is mixed, it will not. I don't remember the name of that effect. So when the overall district is in decay and there's a lot of trash on the street, etc., no one wants to clean it up. because they think, oh, it's dirty, and just forget about it. But when the district is mixed and people see that it could be clean on the street, so people will not bring more trash on the street because they will want to keep it clean. So this type of mixed development is much better. So New York is basically like this, yeah.
I think in terms of that, you got a lot of layers of complexity embedded in the overall statement you made. For instance, the comment on the Cape Town, I visited there and saw the disparities there, and they're happening like that a lot of places. Some of that is the residual effect of intentional redlining, where they purposely kept a group of people out of participating in the mainstream, and banks and all of that participated in. So that's the leftover vestiges of apartheid beyond South Africa. Some of it in the United States. I don't know about other places, but I mention that because the idea is, well, where are any of the model cities close to what you're in? Like you said, you did 3 projects in Russia. Are there any projects you could point to in the United States to go and say, well, here's what we're trying to achieve, and if your community could get to this, that would be great. And the last thing I'll say is, like when you talk about putting in mixed use kinds of complexes in a place, the idea behind it, I guess, is to create proper community that could thrive, have all the arts, education, and other outlets other than just the movies and shopping. So I get that. The challenge is, how do you make people care when, some of it's the fact that this group over there, like in Cape Town, when I visited there, it was a beautiful city. And I bought some art and things like that from some folks who lived in one of the poorer areas. And it was just a fascinating dichotomy. But I bring that up because the tax base, I don't know how governments allocate the proper taxes in a equitable manner. But beyond that, if you're going to have community, it's something like an intentional commons where people care about picking up stuff and shit. How do you make people care when, in fact, the despair that they're dealing with is a ever-present reality? I don't have time to pick up trash. I'm trying to feed my kids. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go down the path of just admiring the problem more. My real question behind all that is, are there models for which you could point to, or cases in which you could show, well, this is how it could be?
So in terms of cities, I think the best model ones are Amsterdam, for example. Amsterdam is mostly built of 5-story something buildings, and it's kind of dense, but due to the low height of the buildings, it's not extremely dense. And there are no ghettos out there, so you can have a super expensive building right across the street from a typical old building, and no one cares. So everything is mixed with everything. And there's even no, let's say, downtown, because there's a lot of spots of interest scattered across the city. So it's interesting almost everywhere. And even if they build a suburban district, like a new something in a field, in a green field, they literally build the same like fractal of the old Amsterdam. So they build everything, also like 5 to 7 stories, retail, culture, education, residential, all that stuff came together. And the same approach, I think, is in London, because London is also very culturally mixed. There's more elitism and ghettoization in the downtown London because of the royal family, etc. But it's also very diverse and very mixed. And Singapore, for example, in Singapore, I have never saw a ghetto. I've been there a few times, and I've cross the island back and forth. There's no ghettos, and you can just walk in many districts, and you don't need a car, or at least you can use taxi. Yeah, and Tokyo is, but it's very dense. So the best option, I think, is Amsterdam. That's why Dutch architects are one of the most popular subcontractors on urban planning all over the world.
You know, I lived in Amsterdam for 5 months, and I never really thought about it, but you're right. I mean, where I lived, it was, you know, upper middle class, and within, you know, a mile I would walk, and there would be, you know, open markets with newly arrived immigrants, and you know, it was very mixed and homogeneous in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought about it though. No, it's interesting, you know, that you're bringing it up now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in America, I don't know. In America, everything is really quickly turns to business. For example, Chicago Millennium Park with the huge mirror stuff, sculpture. I don't know. I don't remember the name. And there is also a fountain when there's a person crying with a, I don't know, like you can Google Chicago Millennium Park. So when they have built it, it led to pumping the real estate prices on a strip of the street, like just across the park, by $1.5 billion in just a couple of years. And also they have built more residential towers, but they all were luxury. And the same thing with Highline, New York. It was a commercial zone previously, but after they have remodeled the train tracks to Highline, they have built billions of dollars of worth of luxury condos just aligned with the park.
Yeah.
So yeah, American developers are fascinating in turning everything into the expensive real estate when the district became more creative and interesting than it was previously.
Well, I agree with you that I think it's the downside of capitalism is that we're not, and I think it goes further than just commerce. I think we're not taught in America to have a social, unless you come from a family that teaches you that. I'm talking about school. In school, we're not taught at all to have any kind of social consciousness of any kind. And it's unfortunate. And I think this is one of the results of that.
Maybe, yes, I haven't been taught at American school.
How interesting that I just wanted to, maybe 10 minutes ago, I just wanted to ponder on the idea that special planning and development, real estate development is really connected to the culture and to the cultural level of people, because if we are talking about such luxurious real estate and places all over the world, be it Russia or United States, it's about the culture of people who don't want to be connected to poor people, to who don't think about this equality and their maybe social responsibility. And while you are thinking about being equal to anybody, about their diversity, about their approach when you can help each other, yes, living in the community and helping each other, I think that it's also in some sort of their cultural feature, because if speaking about our Soviet past, we had there these communities to help survive each other, but there is another side of it, because we can help each other survive mentally and spiritually, being connected to each other and helping each other with being people, with being human beings. Because while you are living in a big house with a high fence, with the security and without any opportunity to connect to anybody, it also some sort of the degradation, despite of the millions of dollars and maybe the opportunity to educate people in a very luxurious school.
So I think, and I have done some research on wealth distribution in the US, and it's not that much like ultra high net worth individuals in the US. So their population share is not so big. So we can just target the middle class, because it's the most populous part of the population, the biggest one. So, and I think they suffer the most from the quality of suburban living. And the only thing is to just make more practical use cases and showcases, and to show people like, look guys, these folks in North Vegas having fun. Here's how they live, and here's the video, or you can travel there and check out, and that's it. Because people mostly don't have an abstract vision, and they hardly digest abstract concepts, so they just need a showcase. Okay. So thank you. Thanks for listening and the comments. It was very important. And feel free to text via chat if you will have any ongoing comments.
Yes, I think that's.
I have one question before we get off, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
In the context of LCE, how would you like us to talk about what you do? Like, how can we spread your, for lack of a better word now, business in a way that really serves you?
So I'm interested.
And serves LCE, both.
Yeah, sure. So I'm interested in talking to some real estate developers who are open to more experiments. It's very rare in the US because real estate developers are like that, and they just they have found some type of framework that works for them, and they just beat it to death. So the majority of real estate developers that I've talked to here in the US, they think that our approach is extremely creative, and they just cannot understand it. And I'm not blaming them because they need to make money, etc. But nevertheless, I think there are some folks in this industry who are maybe younger, or maybe they have some existential crisis or whatever, or some enlightenment. So I'm interested in talking to these types of developers, or to local modern mayors like North Vegas, who are interested in more mixed use, because folks from North Vegas are now arranging an intro between me and the developer, which is going to build this mixed use property. And
well, it's interesting. You know, if I can connect up with Eric's questions about in your response, I'm part of another consortium. I only belong to the Living Cities.
You belong to 76 consortiums.
Yeah, I'm limited. It's limited. Just the Southern California region, and I say I'm tapped out. I have no more time for consortiums. But this is a very interesting group, because their next forum is on housing.
Mm.
It'll be in April. It's called FedBiz Institute, Federation of Business Institute. It's a Los Angeles County, Orange County, Southern California group of legislatures, business, private interest, and local governments, mayors and council members and things like that. And then various assortment of administrators running this, that, or the other county organization. But I have the guy who's the president, I go way back with, we went to grammar school together, actually. We just visited our old neighborhood to go to a fish fry at the Catholic church there where we went to school. And so, but he has every 2 months, he has a forum of some kind in this Federation of Business Institute. I think it'd be very apropos. I'll introduce you via email to Kevin Harbury, who's the president of FedBiz Institute, which is, they're going to be, they'll run several panels and so on and so forth. And it might be a mixed thing. It might be in person and partly online. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, George, I'll if you send me your presentation, or if I can get the presentation, I'll forward it to him and do an introduction, because it'd be the kind of thing they ought to hear from somebody like you as they're discussing the various aspects of homelessness and housing in Southern California.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to drop off. Thank you, George. I look forward to more.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
So
Bye-bye.
great that we managed to find some connections together. It's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
dropping off also. Have a nice day, guys. Take
Have a
care.
nice day. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.